Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Podcast Coaching for Kingdom Entrepreneurs. I am your podcast coach and your host, Kristen Chadwick. Today, I have Jen Esparza with me today, and I want to tell you a little bit about her. So, Jen has spent most of her career immersed in the creative industry. She is leading marketing efforts for a diverse range of campaigns, from government programs to children's theater. As the owner of a marketing agency, the Jen Advantage, which I love that name, by the way, she specializes in helping small businesses and nonprofits. Jen is deeply connected and committed to helping the hardworking entrepreneur and passionate nonprofit leader who their passion is to really impact the world and deepen their cause and to really raise awareness for whatever their cause might be, whether it's in the nonprofit space or wherever. So she is known for her ability to connect with people on a real personal level. And Jen quickly builds trust, making clients feel understood and part of a collaborative team. One size does not fit all. When it comes to Jen, Jen makes it clear that she has personalized strategies for everyone. She is an author of Marketing Basics for Your Small Business and is excited to share about her newly released book, Marketing Basics for Nonprofits. So, we're going to talk about that a little bit. So, welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. This will be awesome.
Well, I'm excited to have you because you are a seasoned marketing expert and you have a very impressive career. I mean, like I said, from government programs to children's theater to helping small businesses and nonprofits, and that is a lot. You go throughout. That's impressive.
Lots of different industries. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we love to hear on this podcast talk about what can help podcasters. And a lot of us podcasters, we do have a small business or we have a nonprofit. And so this is perfect because we wanted to talk about specifically email marketing. That's a common question that I keep getting from my podcasters of Kristen, what is working in email marketing right now and what's not working right now?
Awesome. Yes, that is what I am here for. So let's do it.
Okay. So let's start with basics. What is email marketing?
So email marketing is when you're sending people emails. No, I'm kidding. I mean, it is, but so email marketing is one of my favorite things to teach and to encourage business owners, podcasters to use because the barrier to entry is really low. It's so easy to literally send somebody an email. And if I post on social media, I'm not sure who sees it, but if I send you an email, I know it got to you. Now, whatever you do with it is another story, but I know it got in your inbox. So email marketing is just a way to be able to reach your customers, your audience, through, using an email tool.
Yeah. Okay. So as we're talking to podcasters, why is it important to make sure you have some sort of email marketing set up?
So back to the fact that it's this low barrier to entry, it's free, and it doesn't take you a ton of time. The results you're getting from it are incredible considering the low amount of time and energy and cost you have to put into it. And it's such an incredible way to be able to continue the talk. You're talking at them through a podcast, and then you're just left to sit here and wonder, okay, what did they think? I mean, sure, you can check how many views you've gotten, but it really does leave you a little bit in the dark. So by continuing the conversation and engaging with your customers, with your listeners through email, you're able to measure so much more about what are they actually being impacted by? What are they clicking on? What do they want to hear from you? And it just gives you another way to be able to engage with them and help build that loyalty where they're expecting to hear from you, so that they want to be a part of your club. They want to know more about you.
Yeah. I love that you said it's about basically continuing the conversation on a more personal level, which is great as podcasters because we have this longing to really know our listeners, and email marketing can help you open up your eyes to really what's connecting with them and what maybe is more of a pain point than others and how you can best serve them. That's good. Do you have a favorite email marketing company like MailChimp versus whatever?
So I think MailChimp is very easy to use. That's
Mhm.
actually what I use. So if somebody is not like super tech savvy, they don't want to have to spend a lot of time learning a new program, I think MailChimp is an awesome place to start.
Mhm.
I have other clients that I run their email marketing and they use Constant Contact.
Yep.
It's not as big of a fan. It works, it does the job, but there's just other
Yeah.
things about MailChimp I like more. And then if you really, there's so many other options out there that you could be using. And of course, now that we're talking, my brain just went like, oh, HubSpot. Like HubSpot's
Oh,
got
yeah.
some wild CRM tools built into it, but it's also like it can be really overwhelming and get more complicated. So if you're on that end of the spectrum of your business and your podcast and you're like ready to dive in, HubSpot is an incredible place to be. But if you're just starting, like MailChimp will take you far. Like you're good with that.
Yes, I know. I love that there's always an option of like you can start here or you can go all in and go to HubSpot. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so when you're working with clients in the small business space and nonprofit, I think it goes hand in hand with podcasters because we are trying to grow our audience. We're trying to connect with our community. What are you seeing right now that is not working as much as maybe it did 5 years ago?
So people's attention span, and this isn't news, but people's attention span is like next to nothing. And so your emails have to be engaging. They can't, you cannot be spamming somebody on a daily, even I mean, if you're going to send them weekly emails, it better be good
Mm.
because they're just not going to open them. Like I personally have 2,000 emails in my inbox right now because all the holiday emails are starting and I am just
Mhm.
getting inundated by like, why does a shoe store think I need an email every single day? I don't need that many shoes. They are persistent and I just need to unsubscribe. And that's what the risk you take if your emails aren't good is
Mhm.
just unsubscribing. So things that are not working is like really long form, too much stuff, too much information. Like get to the point in your email quickly so that
Yeah.
they can decide whether or not they want to keep reading or like, no, this isn't for me today.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. And for us heavy writers, we are all going, "Okay, we gotta rein it back in."
This is literally like what is it, like the pot calling the kettle black or throwing stones. My monthly newsletter is so long and it's because I love to write. And so my newsletter has like different pieces to it where you can skim. It's very skimmable. You can skip things,
Yes.
but it links to a blog. And that's where Jen just gets to tell everything that she's thinking about a certain topic. And I don't know if you're reading it in person. Like, honestly, that's not my whole point to like my marketing plan. I do it because I love to write and I really want to do that. So,
Yes.
um, I know going into it that it might get 5 clicks
Yeah.
and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You don't pour your heart and soul into the time of like like doing these things and dedicating to it if you really want that to convert for you. Like I just do
Mhm.
it. I like to talk.
There you
Or
go. Yeah, you gotta stay in your, like,
yeah.
joy factor, right? Of, like, if you love to write, then do it, and I bet, though, too I'm thinking of a couple of people that are in my audience that we love to write, and they have long newsletters too, and I always enjoy reading theirs because I know it's their gifting, and, like, there's so much beauty and thought put into those newsletters, and so I do still value those long ones, but then I will say some of the other ones that I love that are the most simple are some friends that are, or, colleague people that I know in the industry. They are short and to the point and like, "Oh, this is great." And then it clicks to something else that's more long form. So it sounds like that's what is
Yeah.
working right now is that short form to go to long form.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. For sure. And I guess too, just don't feel like if it's not your gifting, don't feel like you have to fill the space. Like I've
Yes.
got a client who wants to have like all these multiple articles and links, and he's just not getting the clicks. And it's trying to help shift that thinking of like, you don't need to inundate them with like all this information. It's like, quality over quantity. So if your quality is this beautiful long form something, then that's probably what your audience is enjoying. But if that's not your gifting, like, don't feel like you just have to fill the whole space.
Yes. Yeah. Permission to be you in your email marketing.
Sure.
Okay. So I feel like I have so many questions here because I can hear my podcasters inside my community and their questions and my own questions. So, as somebody who is maybe they've had an email list for a long time, what are you seeing as we merge into 2025? Those things that are going to shift. I know we just talked about short form, but is it a more like you put a GIF in there or you put a link to a video and that's it? Or is it a drip campaign? What are you seeing as an emerging trend starting to happen?
Hmm. So something that I love that question because you're going to make me think, but off the top of my head, something again because people's attention span is such what it is, and people love video. Like video is king right now, and having an element in your email that is a video, and it could just be a short something from you personally, like, hey,
Mm,
I've had some really exciting guests lately. I'd love to tell you about them. Click below for the links to the shows or whatever it is.
yeah.
A message from you. People love that. I've got a couple clients doing that, and the personal like connection factor is
Mhm.
off the charts. So, but even if it's not that, and it is just a video of some sort, including that element, you just need to be careful that you're not taking them somewhere away from you. So like the
Yeah.
video element should be to your podcast or to a video of you, to
Mhm.
something, relevant. So they're not going down a different rabbit hole and leaving your marketing, tool there.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
the video is something that I really start seeing incorporating. And that's like really starting to work in an email.
Yeah. I have seen that too, where it is intriguing to open your email and see somebody's face there, like, waiting to talk to you, and you're like, "Ooh, what are you gonna say?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Because like
Okay.
an email used to start with, like a lot of folks would do an introduction of like, this is what's been going on with my business this month. And
Mhm.
this is and they just like, I don't think people are reading them.
Yeah, yeah,
So having that video to kind of replace that piece,
yeah.
people love, just keep it brief.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm thinking of I literally just sent an email out about, a podcast episode that I just released answering a question. So what I could have done and shifted is instead of writing it all out, or I basically took my show notes and then put it into my email, would be just put the question, put the video to YouTube, and like find the answer here. And then that would be one way that it would keep it short, sweet, and to the point. Yes.
Yeah. And
Okay.
oftentimes, like when you're sending out these emails as a podcaster, you want to drive them to your podcast.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of this kind of an issue too of determining like what is the best path for you to actually reach your customers, your audience. Because if you're writing these long form things, now you just took their attention. So like I just took 10 minutes to read your email. I
Mhm.
now have 10 minutes less to go watch your podcast.
Mm,
And if you look at it in that way of like, what is the most important way to engage these people? If you want them to be reading your writing and that's the most important way, then great.
mhm.
But if that's like a distraction and they're not getting over to the podcast now, like if you could have just said, hey, we're talking about this over here, find the answer on my podcast.
Yeah.
They didn't spend time reading it and then they just click on the podcast to get that answer.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good and so helpful, and, an awareness of like, yeah, that makes sense. Everybody has a limited amount of time, so do you want them going to your podcast and listening or reading or I mean, it could be driving to finding out more about working with you or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about so how do we grow our email list so that we have an audience to talk to? So say we're a podcaster who is just starting a podcast. and they're just starting their newsletters or their emails, how do we capture those emails? What have you found that's really helpful to actually get somebody's email on our list?
I have so many like different things to say about this, so I hope I can keep them all straight and
Okay.
remember to say them all. Everything you do, there's an opportunity to get somebody's email, and so like for me, I've been asked to go and do like speaking engagements, and sometimes those speaking engagements don't pay. And so normally I get paid to do a speaking engagement. So I look at like, okay, well, what is this worth to me? If I'm going to be in a room full of 100 people, then I want their emails.
Mhm.
So maybe that's a trade I make. You need me to speak for free. I'll just give me the email list of everyone who's going to be there. And I just got 100 emails that are quote unquote warm leads because they've all met me now and heard
Yes.
me. And now I can engage with those folks from there. So anytime you have an opportunity to speak in front of people, meet people, or even if you don't do that yet, but you see that there's an opportunity, whether it's, at the local library or chamber of commerce or whatever it is you're doing, like use that as an opportunity to be able to collect them. And that's a great way to collect them in mass.
Yeah.
But if you're just starting this podcast and you're trying to figure it out, like social media is a great way to make that ask, but reuse your content. Like, don't feel like you have to create something new for social that's separate from your podcast. If you can take your podcast and take snippets from that and create videos and give people on social media a sneak peek of what you are, it's kind of like a twofold bonus. Like, you might drive people over to your podcast, but you also might drive them to want to sign up for your newsletter or your email list so they can get more content and more you. But don't feel like you have to start something new, like creating new things on social. You can definitely repurpose your content across your platform so that you're not just constantly in content mode.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's good. I think that's a huge permission to like just take a deep breath, and you already have so much content to
Yes.
use and utilize that well. Yeah. That's
But
good.
also on that hand of like having the content, a way to already drive your current listeners to want to sign up for a newsletter is to offer, and I'm sure you've talked about lead magnets before, but offering some sort of lead magnet. So for example, like I have on my website a complete checklist on like all things email marketing. So if you're going to be do email marketing, there I have a full checklist that you can go on my website and download.
Oh,
And
awesome.
that's my lead magnet, right? Like that's my way to say, hey, like I have something free for you. I created this tool. So if you listen to this podcast today and you're like, that was great, but I didn't take notes. You can go on my website and go download this full checklist of all the things we talk about. And that's a way for me to collect emails. So
Okay.
having something like that, providing value, like there has to be a give and take. They have to feel like you're authentic. They have to feel like you're actually giving them something for them to give you their email. But that's an awesome way to be able to offer your listeners a way to connect with you. And then they learn more about you. Like they're like, wow, she's giving me all of this stuff for free. Like, yeah, I want to sign up. I want to learn more.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. Well, and I like to call it like the great exchange of like, I'll take your email and I will give you something that's going to help solve a problem, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So, and I love that you hit on lead magnets because we do talk a lot about that. What have you seen, especially with lead magnets, that have been effective or not effective?
So on the not effective side, I think back to the point or like what I said about just making sure you're actually offering them value and quality. It's really disappointing when somebody offers you something and it's bland. It doesn't hit. It's very general. It's like literally, a 4-point checklist of things that like you already know. So that will completely like ruin your credibility immediately if you're not giving them value. So whatever it is, it has to hit your audience's pain point. And then that goes into actually knowing your audience, but really figuring out what your audience needs and what their pain point is. And then you're solving that. So you're not offering them this like, hey, learn how to work with me. It's, hey, you have a problem. I'm going to solve it. Like sell them the solution. Don't
Yeah.
try to like sell yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like I want to like sing the rest of the Vanilla Ice song, like as you said that. Okay, this is really helpful. What else would you like if you had a podcaster that maybe they run a ministry for moms and they have quite a bit of a following. They are they've written a book, they have products to sell, they have their podcast. What are some ways that you would sit down with that client and you would help them with their email marketing?
First of all, I want to know this person because that sounds really great.
It's a real person. I'm thinking of.
So a lot of like to begin, it's a matter of just really like parsing things out into each of their own buckets and then seeing how they can overlap. So like taking these products to sell and asking them the questions of like, what are you selling? Where are you selling them to? Who is your audience specific for this one thing? Because your audience for your podcast might not be the same audience who wants to buy a product, who wants to be in your ministry. Like there's definitely overlap, but they might not be the same. And they also might not be in the same place. So busy mom might not read the email, but she's scrolling on Instagram or, whatever that is for each thing. So looking at each of them separately, and then figuring out how to meld them together. Watch where those overlaps are. Like, where is your audience? How often are they engaging with you? How often do they want to engage with you? And that really goes into like determining who your audience is and who your target is. Like, you might think it's one thing, and then when you start looking at the demographics of who's actually clicking, who's actually buying, you find something different. So I think it's important. And even if you've been in business for a while and you've got this great, robust list already, like I have clients who have lists, that are like 5,000 people and they're getting, a 20% open rate when I first start working with them. And it's because those people fall off and they're no longer interested or they use your service and they don't care. In this case, the kids have aged out. They might not be relevant anymore. So also looking at like, how can you keep those people engaged? How, if you've got a list of 5,000 people, do we keep your open rate, high and keep the click rates high? Like, what do we need to do in order to keep those people engaged, or to get into that next generation of people coming in?
Yeah. Real quick on that, before we move on, is I know a lot of people who will send out an email and say, hey, are you still interested? Do you recommend doing that and being clear of like maybe say this person is, the women in ministry and she is moving on towards, I'm not going to talk about toddler stage anymore. I'm going to talk about teenage stage. Would you recommend sending out an email and saying, hey, I'm shifting focus from here to there. If you want to stay, awesome. If you want to leave, opt out.
If you're shifting focus, you can. I think the biggest benefit to sending something like that out is if you do have a pretty robust list, you're paying for that, right? So you're not paying for the list, but like if you're MailChimp, you're paying for how many emails you're actually sending and how many you have stored and all that. So part of it is just a numbers game of like, well, if there's 1,000 people on this list who don't ever click on anything, I kind of want them off. If you're smaller and you only have 300 people on your list, it probably doesn't matter. So I would say that's something that's more of a strategy for when you've got a bigger list and you are wanting to make sure they still feel like you're relevant. Then you can ask that question. That is why the opt out is on there. If they don't want to subscribe anymore, it's very easy for them to not. So
Okay. Yeah. I've just seen it done a few times and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Almost like I want to spare you space in your inbox if you're not that interested anymore. But also there's the risk of like people being like, oh, I'm out. Which potentially, I don't know. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I see more companies do that are actually selling something. We're all selling something, but that have so let's just say like Expedia. And they're like, oh, well, you're on our list. You're not getting any, you're not clicking anything. You're still interested? Well, now the way that they have like given me this different email, like the way that it's addressed and everything. It made me open it, and it made me think, well, wait, yeah, I do need a vacation. Click on the pretty picture. So that's actually part of why people do that. It's not so much because they're so gracious that they're hoping you unsubscribe, but they're hoping to engage you in such a way that you're like, that's right, I do need a new pair of shoes. Hold on. Oh, no, don't stop sending me those. Of course, I'll open them now. I promise. Like,
yeah.
So that's kind of the tactic behind that.
Okay.
So if you really want people like off your list because you don't want to pay for them anymore, then do it. But
do it.
The most of the people, why I think they're doing it is because they're hoping to re-engage you, to say, oh, wait, yeah, like don't leave me behind.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. All right. So anything else that you can think of that would be helpful for a podcaster with a newsletter that wants to promote their coaching business, their ministry, their nonprofit, their small business that we didn't cover?
Yeah. So while I know I did say, like, keep it relatively short, don't go crazy on your content. It is important that when you're using something like MailChimp, that you're actually giving it some content to be able to analyze for you. So all of these email tools have wonderful analytics that you can see, like how many people are clicking, what are they clicking on, like how many times do they go back to a specific link, what are the age demographics of the people, what, are they male or female? And if you're just putting in a short little paragraph and a link to your podcast, then it's not telling you much. So I would consider playing with, let's say you have a coaching business. So I would mess with having like a nice little graphic and short content about learning more, and maybe let them be able to click on the picture or click on a link here or click on a button, and have some various ways throughout the email for them to be able to engage with you. And you can from there determine, what did they actually, did anybody care about my coaching? No. Okay, I got to rethink about how I'm talking about this then. And you'll get excellent data, but and be able to know whether or not you need to shift something, even just doing like A/B testing with your email subject lines, to be able to test to see like, okay, well, is this working or is this working? Where are people want to engage me? Do I lead with coaching? Do I lead with the podcast? And so giving your email providers some like ability to actually have information to analyze, I think is crucial to actually like optimize you using email. So if you've got you can still do that with a couple paragraphs and a video of your podcast, and maybe even including like, on the bottom, like links to like 3 of your most popular podcasts. And are people wanting, maybe they don't care today about email marketing, but they were really excited about listening about, I think you had one about
Facebook ads, or I don't know.
That's the one they're going to click on. Like, give them some options, because we know how we interact with email, and I might love and be super loyal to you, but I've been busy and I can't, I haven't read the last 3. But I didn't realize, so I missed one. And then I see it on the bottom and I'm like, oh, look, there is an option. This is something I missed this one. Like, don't expect that they've read every single email of yours. Like, it's okay to add some of that content back in each time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That brings up a question that I forgot to ask, and I'm glad I remembered, is frequency and a wrap up. So here's the 2-part question: is how much should we be emailing our current list? And do you recommend, as a podcaster, as you just said, to do like a monthly wrap up of like, here's the last 4 episodes that you may have missed? Or would it work better to integrate that into each weekly email with like a PS, like, in case you missed it, here's this episode?
Ooh, good question. I would make sure that your email list is loyal, meaning that they're engaging with you and that they're truly the people that want to be engaged with you. They signed up for this list. Like, they weren't from your past real estate business who now you started a podcast and you're a coach. And, like, these are the people who are truly honed in, truly your audience. if that's who your list is, then I think you can send them a weekly email. Like I was actually just on another podcast, and the podcast host does, his emails are always a short description of the guest and like what they talked about, a link to go straight to the podcast, and then he's got a sponsor, so like their little ads below. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he'll add in like, oh, there's a fundraiser, you should go, but like it's very simple. But I know as a loyal listener that when I get that email, I know that there's not going to be a bunch of garbage that I have to sift through. Like, oh, let's see who Mark's guest was this week. Oh, I'm interested. Cool. I'm not interested. I'm not going to watch this one.
Yeah.
But I open them all. So his email, at least for me, his open rate is 100% because I look at all of them. I want to know who your guest was, but I might not totally read it. So I think that works to do the weekly one. If that's not really who your audience is, and you have this mixed bag, then the monthly recap of doing this is everything is probably the better way to go. I think no matter what, even if you're sending those weekly ones, I love the idea of having some extra links in there on the bottom of other topics, just so you can use that as a tool to measure, like, what are they interested in? Yeah. It's not taking up so much space that it's garbling, like, oh gosh, this was an overwhelming email to read.
Yeah, so. That's good. Okay. So I love that you brought in the example of what emails are you opening, which is a good question for us to ask as we are looking at our own inbox. Like, whose email do we consistently open? And see what you love about it and implement that strategy into your own. It could be the way that you just described, where it's very simple. Every week or every episode, he's going to put who he's interviewing and the link to the podcast. And it's as simple as that. Or do you love the long written form with the different links to the different shows, depending on what you like, which I think is great, knowing analytics wise. So I think that's good. Just be aware of like, what do you gravitate towards opening and engaging with? So, all right, this has been really helpful for us podcasters to know the email campaign side of things, email marketing. Anything else that you want to mention before we wrap up?
Anything else? I think it does go back to the permission of like being you. So what works for you? Like, it's very easy to come on and give advice, but I don't know you personally. And for example, like the example I just gave, he does have the podcast I was on has another business, but like, that's not what he's even trying to advertise through this podcast. It's just a podcast. And everybody else here most likely has this other business, whether it's coaching, consulting, something. And if you do want to talk about that, so like, don't hear me saying that you can't talk about that in this, like, you should use your email to be able to hit all those points of what it is you're trying to sell. And use like on your podcast platforms, if you can include things like links to your website and stuff like that, make sure that they can find you, like that it all goes both ways. So as much as like, take everything what I said, but then also compare it to who you actually are and who your audience is, and do it that way.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Jen. This has been so helpful. If somebody wants to be like, hey, I would love for you to take a look at my email marketing or just marketing help in general, how do people get in touch with you?
So you can go to my website, which is thejenadvantage.com, and there's a way to contact me on there. Like you mentioned, I do have a couple of books. So if you're like, I need help with all kinds of my marketing, the first half of the books are really talk about like determining like your branding and who your audience is and what your mission and your goals are. And then it talks about all the different marketing. So they need help with all kinds of things. They can always start with the books, which are on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all that good stuff.
Yes.
And then also just through social media. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook at The Jen Advantage. So come find me there and follow along and let me know how it goes. And if I can be of help, and even just as this extra set of eyes, even as a question. I think sometimes we get intimidated and we don't reach out to people because we're like, oh man, the first thing they're going to do is charge me or whatever. I mean, I love when I get questions in my inbox. I love to meet people. So If anybody listening has like just a question or just like, I need an opinion, please, like, definitely do not hesitate to reach out.
You guys take advantage. That is such a generous offer. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much, you guys, for listening. And I know this is going to be helpful for you guys as you're navigating the email marketing world. And like she said, if you have any more questions, reach out to Jen. You can reach out to me, and we will get those questions answered. All right. Take care, you guys. Happy podcasting.
Thank you.